Hi everyone. So today I'm going to discuss the word tranny. So as you might have noticed, my username on YouTube is trannygirl15. It's been that way for several years since I registered on YouTube, which was in 2006, I believe. And originally I picked the name because it was meant to be kind of a joke. The most popular blogger on YouTube at the time was called Lonely Girl 15, and she had a blog where she talked about her life, and just her personal experience of things, and it was extremely popular. So my idea was just, I'm going to make a blog and talk about my life and my experiences, and I'm some average girl too, and the difference is that I'm a tranny. So, I'm going to pick the name Tranny Girl 15 as kind of like a joke on Lonely Girl 15. Back then it wasn't known that the blogger in question turned out to not be a real person, in a sense, was a paid actor in some kind of a promotional campaign for a company. But anyways, people have since told me on a few occasions that they found the name Tranny Girl 15 to be offensive because they find the word tranny to be offensive. For a few reasons. Some people just perceive it as having a negative connotation, not using the appropriate terminology. Some people have compared it to the word nigger and the word shemale and things like that. Obviously, I personally don't find that word offensive. I think of tranny as just being slang, for a transgendered person. Basically, whenever people talk about a transvestite, a cross-dresser, a drag queen, or a transsexual, in their daily life, they might say, "I saw a tranny today" or something, and you would replace that, using the proper terminology by "I saw a transsexual person" or "a transgendered person today." But I think it's just normal for people to start creating slang for these things, because if every time you're talking about a trans person, you have to say "a transgendered person," it gets kind of long, so people just tend to create short forms for things. I also think that, people give words a lot of meaning, a lot of power in today's society. Whether a word is offensive or not, is not a characteristic of the word itself. It's all in your mind. It's a question of whether you get offended by this word or not. It's like people who think that there's something intrinsically sexy about a woman's body. The woman's body doesn't radiate, some particle of sexiness, that gets absorbed by you. If you find that woman sexy, it's because there's a reaction going on in your brain. It's all your perception that, attaches some kind of a meaning to words and to the things that you see and hear. So I don't find the word offensive. It's never offended me. There are other words that I will find offensive, when people say shemale, I think it's a bit on the offensive side, because the word shemale has the word male in it, When you're a trans woman, you don't really consider yourself male. It's also a direct reference to, pre-op transsexuals, it's putting emphasis on the penis. And of course the word shemale is a word that is entirely derived from the world of porn. When I see a man, who comes up to me and says, on the internet, "I'm really into shemales, I'd like to talk to you," I have no desire to speak to him, because to me that means he is completely misinformed about the transsexual community. The only thing he knows about trans people is what he's learned from porn, and he hasn't even bothered to Google transsexual on the internet, and learn a thing or two, because if he did, he would know that this term is very, very widely considered offensive. But anyways, another thing that I've learned on YouTube is that it's basically impossible to please everyone. I don't really care all that much for political correctness. I don't really care all that much for trying as much as possible not to be offensive, because I just feel like no matter what I say, some people are going to get offended. When you run a blog and you have hundreds or thousands of subscribers, you can just film a video of yourself saying, "Hi, my name is such and such, and I'm going to talk about my cat," and somebody's going to post a hate comment and be like, "I hate you, you're ugly, you're fat, blah blah blah." And no matter what you say, somebody's going to find something wrong with it. There's always somebody that's going to get offended. So I've pretty much given up on trying to please everybody. And I think in the end, if you're trying to convey a message, you can't censor yourself all the time. You can't always be thinking, "Oh, what would such and such kind of people think about my message, blah blah blah," would this category of person get offended? In the end, you gotta get down and say what you want to say, and not care too much whether people get offended or not. And in a sense, I think it's possible, to just decide that the word tranny is not offensive to you. I don't find it offensive. I don't think people use it in an offensive manner, and I think the intentions of the people using the word matter a lot in whether or not it's used in an offensive context. I mean, if you think of some guys walking around, and one of them says something like, "Oh, I like this pink blouse," and the other one just tells him as a joke, "Oh, you're such a fag," and he can tell that his friend is just joking when he's calling him a fag, he's probably not going to feel very offended. Whereas if you see very conservative people talking about how all fags should be shot and executed and they're sinners and blah blah blah, I think you can see there's quite a difference in meaning there. And at the same time, it's the same thing for the word nigger. Like when people used this word in the past, it was definitely meant in an offensive manner. But black people have chosen to use this word in a more empowering manner. You see rappers using it in their songs all the time, and I don't think that people listening to this music necessarily feel very offended about it, because they're obviously not trying to denigrate their own people when they're using that word. And it's the same thing for words like fag. I don't think that fag is such a great word personally, but again, is it any worse than gay or homosexual? I mean, again, people will tend to use short forms, and there's a lot of gay people who will just say, "Yeah, I'm a fag, whatever, so what, you don't have any power over me by calling me a fag. It doesn't mean anything more or less than gay or whatever." So if you just choose to not be offended by words and to use them maybe in a more empowering manner too, then you don't get offended so much. I mean, I've said that I find the word she-male to be more offensive because it comes from the world of porn, but it doesn't offend me all that much either. I mean, if people talk about she-males, they generally don't mean it in an offensive manner either. And I generally know what they mean. They mean a pre-option sexual. They just don't know any better. They just don't know that the proper word would be pre-option sexual. But coming back to my earlier point, it's pretty much impossible to please everybody, I mean, I mentioned the word homosexual. I would think of that as being like the proper way to talk about men who desire men or women who desire women exclusively. But at the same time, there's some people in the gay community who don't like the word homosexual because they're like, "Oh, homosexual, it has the word sexual in it, and it's implying that this is all sexual for us," People will find ways to get offended about that, and to me that's just completely ridiculous. I mean, of course, being homosexual has to do with your sexuality. What the fuck do you think it has to do with, Like, come on. And if people can get offended by that, they can just get offended by anything. And it's like the same kind of thing in the trans community. Some people don't like the word transsexual. Some people don't like the word trans woman. They think we should say like woman of transsexual experience and blah blah blah. And they don't like the word genetic girl. They think that some people think we should say women born women, but other people think that women born women is offensive, so they'll find other terms for it, and some other people will argue about that. Like, if you go on forums about transsexuality, you can occasionally find big arguments slash flame wars about whatever term is the most appropriate for this minute, and nobody ever really seems to agree. So me, I just say, fuck it. You know, I'm a trans woman, I'm also a transsexual, I'm also transgender, and I'm a tranny, I'm all of those things. And if you're not happy with me using the word tranny, you know, if that's too offensive for you, then I guess you should just not watch my videos. But hopefully you're able to, you know, get beyond that, you know. And again, on the offensive thing, you know, the same issue comes up, you know, for black people. I mean, obviously we've banned the N-word for a good reason. But, you know, I say black people, but some people find that offensive too, you know. I mean, some people think you should say African American, but then other people have pointed out, and I think legitimately so, that when you say African American, that's actually kind of stupid, because not all black people are from Africa, you know, and black people who were born in America and had their grandparents born in America and their grandparents were born in America, you know, I don't think they necessarily want to be referred to as Africans, you know? I mean, they're Americans first, before they're anything else. And I think most black people are fine with using the word black also, you know? But again, you know, people will always find ways to get offended, and I think it's mostly a matter of meaning, you know? I think people should be smart enough to tell when other people are trying to insult them, you know, and, you know, get offended when it's appropriate. You know, get offended when people are telling you that you're stupid and that you're dumb and that you're worth less than other people. That's when you should get offended, you know. But when people generally don't agree with words and use words that you don't necessarily like the sound of, you know, that's probably not when you should get offended. Okay, so that's what I had to say for today's video. You may agree or disagree. I suggest you read the comments to the video. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me, as usual, which just goes to prove my point. In fact, you know, you can never please everyone. You can never convince everyone. Yeah. Okay. So feel free to comment. Feel free to post a video response. Bye bye, people.